Last week on JewishMom.com, I posted a statement made by Leiby Kletsky's parents, and I personally found it like a very, very powerful letter. Basically, it was sort of like good deeds that the parents are suggesting that we take on in response to Leiby's tragic murder. So one of the things that they write is, one of the things that they mention is this. They mention that they recommend that we take on acts of unity and loving kindness. Let us perpetuate the feeling of collective responsibility and love expressed during the search for Leiby. An additional act of kindness towards your neighbor or to those less fortunate than you can go a long, long way toward perfecting our world. So when I read this, I read it, I guess, like with the eyes of a mother, and it sort of made me think of acts of kindness that I can do towards my children. And in general, I think like this whole horrific story with Leiby, I think made me, and I think made many mothers, sort of think on a, I guess all of us are thinking like, what does this mean? Like, what does God want us to, what does God want the Jewish community and the Orthodox community in particular to learn from this horrific case of, horrific violence against a child? And I think maybe many mothers, and I did, I was sort of thinking like on a microscopic level of sort of violence against our children, like that mothers doing on a microscopic level violent things towards using violence against our children. I'm not talking necessarily about physical violence. I'm talking also about sort of emotional violence, using language like mean, violent, abusive language against our children. And I think, this sounds like so terrible, but I think like so often when we mothers, like when we get into like a pressured situation or we're stressed out or overwhelmed or whatever, it's so easy to find ourselves, using language and using, ways of communicating with our children that are really, really violent and really, really bad. So I just wanted to read you a story. I've recently been rereading the book Growing with My Children. Do you see it? Growing with My Children by Sarah Shapiro. I think that this is probably the best book for Jewish moms ever written. I really couldn't recommend it. I really couldn't recommend it more. I think it's a fantastic book. It's a book about basically an overwhelmed Orthodox mother of 5 very young children, and like how, and basically it's the story of how she joins a parenting class with a teacher named Leiby, and how really it changes her, and it changes her parenting style, and makes her like a much, much better mother. And so I just wanted to, before I want to preface what I'm about to read. This is basically, I'm going to read the story of sort of a mother using a certain kind of violence against her son. And I just want to preface this by saying I don't know how many of you actually know Sarah Shapiro personally. I have the honor of knowing her, and she is a wonderful human being. She's a very, very sweet human being, a very gentle person, a very sincere person, a very, very, a person who like the word, who like really, really you couldn't imagine her ever being violent against a fly. Okay, so I just want to basically, this story that I'm about to read, it goes back 25 years. Now, thank God today, Sarah Shapiro, I just saw her the other day. Thank God she's a proud mother and grandmother of a whole bunch of grandchildren. But this is going back 25 years when she was like an overwhelmed mother of young children, just like you and me. Okay, so this is the story. Basically, she's about to have like maybe her 3rd or 4th session of her parenting class. And so she's trying, the class meets at her house, so she's trying to get all the kids asleep, all the kids in bed. But it's easier said than done. So basically she's been trying to get them to eat dinner, and she's been trying to and nobody's cooperating. It's been very, very, very difficult, okay? And she's got a lot of time pressure on her, okay? So then she says, go brush your teeth. Go brush your teeth. Go brush your teeth. Go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. Get into pajamas. Get into pajamas. Get into pajamas. Get into pajamas or I'll hit you so hard you'll cry. How do you want to go sleep? I screamed. I screamed. "You want to go to bed happy or you want to go to bed crying? Get into bed or I will smack you." Then I demonstrated the parental consistency of which I've heard and matched word with deed. Daniel, her only son, who, as it so often happens, chanced to be right there as my temperature took off like a rocket, received the full force of my maternal missile. He was picking up his collection of tzaddikim trading cards when I entered the children's bedroom. "What do you think you're doing?" I shouted, coming down on him with a sharp slap. "Pick those up and get into bed. Did you brush your teeth?" "No." I hit him again, harder this time. My hand stung. A shadow of something passed over his face. Silent surprise at this abrupt resurrection of mother as enemy. It took just a fraction of a second for him to shift over so delicately into his corresponding role. He was transformed by a subtle rearrangement of his features into the resistant, resentful child. With downcast eyes and a tiny smile, Daniel dawdled with his cards, or rather, I perceived him dawdling and saw red. "Pick up the cards!" "I am." "You are not." He began ever so slowly, or so it seemed, to gather them together. He's trying to get me mad on purpose. He's teasing me, I thought, lights flashing on and off in my brain. I thereupon smacked him hard again, thinking self-righteously that this would teach him not to enrage me like this ever again. He deserves it. He deserves it, I thought madly. Daniel was crying. "What are you doing?" piped up a small voice within me. "Stop." I hit his hand, the one hand holding the stack of cards. Pictures of the Chafetz Chaim, Rav Moshe Feinstein, and Rav Elchanan Wasserman scattered onto the floor. Their presence embarrassed me. "Now get into bed," I shouted. Okay, so it's very, very hard for me to read this. And I just want to say, like, I'm not reading this for mothers, like, as sort of like a message to mothers who hit their children. I'm not talking only to mothers who hit their children, okay? I'm talking to mothers who, and I think it's probably pretty much all of us, mothers who can get pressured, who can get stressed out, who can get just totally overwhelmed and then just lose control, okay? And then, I'm not just talking about violence, physical violence like we read in this story. I'm talking about like violence like mothers like losing control and yelling and screaming and, using belittling, insulting kind of language against our children. So I wanted to read something else that I found very interesting in the book, like a similar topic. So Miriam Leiby is teaching this in the parenting class. She says the following: "Imagine that one of your children is hitting the other one. Gripping his arm, you shout loudly, 'How would you like someone to do that to you?'" She paused. Yes, this sounded familiar, Sarah Shapiro says. "Now visualize the scene again. You don't yell. You draw your child aside and say very gently and softly, 'How would you like someone to do that to you?'" She looked around the room. Which manner would be likely to succeed? We were all silent. The answer was obvious. It doesn't matter as much what you say as how you say it. Okay? Now another situation. Everybody's waiting for dinner. But a lovely aroma from the kitchen indicates that you've burned the rice. Your husband berates you. He says, "Why do you always do that? If you were a bit more careful, maybe we would have a decent meal around this place once in a while." So how do you feel? "Angry," answered one woman in the class. "Defensive," replied another mother. I'd explained myself, like I had to go stop the baby from falling out the window or something like that. I raised my hand. "I'd feel low," I said. "Yes," said Mrs. Leiby, the teacher. "You'd feel low. Well, that's frequently how we talk to our children, isn't it?" We all smiled uncomfortably. Now, when we consistently yell at a child like this, he might react outwardly by demonstrating self-pity or by answering you back accusingly or in self-defense, or he could just deny the facts. But inwardly, he probably agrees with the implications of your treatment. He feels that he's really just a low creature. No good. "Yes, I'm a crumb, and I'll stay this way. This is the way I am. Has this achieved your goal?" Mrs. Leiby removed her glasses and looked around at each one of us. Isn't our goal to change his behavior? Now, going back a bit, you've burnt the rice. She smiled. What if your husband chose instead to say something to you like this? "Darling, don't worry about it. I know how hard it is to concentrate when everybody's distracting you." It's a hard story, right? Okay. So the reason I'm telling these stories is because, as I said, I know Sarah Shapiro. And I know that she is like the kindest, sweetest, most wonderful human being. Very, very devoted mother, like really, she's a stay-at-home mother, like, and more than anything in the world, she wanted to be like a good mother to her children, right? Like all of us do, okay? And what I believe, what I really, really believe, is that good intentions and being a good mother and, I'm sorry, having good intentions and like really, really wanting to be a good mother and really, really being a gentle person and a sweet person and a nice person like probably all of us are, it's just not enough. What I really believe, and it's something that I've seen very much in my own life, is that how important it is to become not only a well-intentioned mother, but also a skilled mother. I think it's so important, and I could say this like one time, and I could say it 100 times. I believe it's so, so, so important that every single mother should take a parenting class in order to become a more skilled mother, in order to like get through like the stressful situations in our lives, in our mothering lives, and without, and in order not to react in a violent way. It's so important to gain skills which actually teach us how to deal effectively with our children and how to deal with them in a way which is a positive way and a good way, and to like have discipline with love and boundaries and with love. It's so important, and I know I've seen it in my own life. When I was a mother, when I was in Sarah Shapiro's position, when I like had a bunch of little kids, when I was starting out, and I was incredibly well-intentioned. I was a very, very sweet person, a very, very good person, and I don't think that anyone in the world would have thought that I was a woman, that I was a mother who could have been violent towards her children. But I was. I was violent in different ways, and definitely on an emotional level, also on a physical level. Like and I would just like lose control and like they were fighting, or like they wouldn't go to bed, or like they were, I don't know, whatever, like, and I didn't know how to react because I was a very, very well-intentioned mother. I was not a skilled mother, okay? And so I went to a parenting class for 3 years, okay? And now, this past year, I took another parenting class. I took a class with Dina Friedman, and I really recommend it very, 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 very highly. It's a class that's starting up again in November, and it's a year-long class. You do it over the phone, so basically you can listen to the classes whenever you're free. And it's just enabled me, like I just see again, I had done 3 years of parenting classes, and I still need it. I still need it in order to be a mother who is not violent, like be like a mother who is a good mother and a skilled mother. I want to bless all of us moms that through learning from, like, thank God we live in a community where there's a lot of wisdom. It's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of people who can guide you if you're struggling, if you're having difficulties. If you hear these stories from Sarah Shapiro and you can relate, as most of us can, then, there are so many ways in order to become a more skilled mother. So many classes out there, so many even books out there. I highly recommend the Faber and Maislish series, How to Talk So Children Will Listen, and Listen So Children Will Talk. I think it's an excellent series, and Dina Friedman I recommend very, very highly. And I'm sure that there's many other courses and books available. But Zoe, I think like we owe it to our children. I think we owe it to our children. We owe it to ourselves to learn how to not only be good, well-intentioned mothers, to also be skilled mothers and better mothers to our children. Okay? So I want to bless all of you with an amazing, amazing